The Baltimore Ravens made a serious statement this week, and it wasn't just about locking up a key player. It was a message to the league, to the locker room, and to the future of this franchise. Kyle Hamilton, one of the most dynamic safeties in all of football, just landed a monster extension that keeps him in Baltimore through 2030. For years, $100 million. $82 million guaranteed. That's not just a contract. That's a commitment. That's the Ravens saying, this is one of our cornerstones, and we're building around him. And while that in itself is major news, John Harbaugh didn't hold back. He basically came out and said, yeah, we're not done. This is what makes this team so intriguing right now. It's not just about the names on the depth chart or who impressed during training camp. It's about the direction this franchise is heading. When you invest that kind of money in a safety, a non-quarterback position, you're saying loud and clear that you value versatility, leadership, and impact on all three levels of the defense. And with Kyle Hamilton, it's easy to see why they made that call. He's not just a guy who lines up deep and plays center field. He's a chess piece. You can drop him back, bring him up to the line, put him in the slot, run him in dime packages. There's really no role in the secondary he can't fill. And the crazy part is, he's only been in the league for 3 years. This isn't a veteran nearing the end of his prime. This is a player who's still ascending, who hasn't even hit his ceiling yet. Now let's talk about the money. Because it's one thing to say a deal is big, it's another to understand just how big. Kyle Hamilton just reset the safety market by about $4 million per year. That's not pocket change. That's a seismic shift. He received nearly $48 million fully guaranteed, with over $82 million in total guarantees. His signing bonus alone was almost $27 million. This is a deal that broke records at every level. And yet, when you really break it down, it could end up being a bargain. Why? Because the salary cap keeps rising. We saw it with Lamar Jackson. When Lamar signed that record-breaking deal to become the highest-paid quarterback in the league, people were asking if the Ravens overpaid. Just 2 years later, he's already fallen out of the top 5. He's currently the 10th highest-paid quarterback in the NFL. And if that same trend continues, this Hamilton deal is going to age beautifully. By the time we're talking about this contract in 2029 or 2030, people might be asking how the Ravens managed to get such a high-level player locked in at that price. But here's where things get even more interesting. This wasn't just about Kyle Hamilton. Because during his post-practice presser, John Harbaugh had a glint in his eye. He didn't just congratulate Kyle and move on. He said, that's not the end of it. And when Harbaugh says something like that, you pay attention. Because it usually means something is brewing. Let's not forget, Baltimore still has a number of players either eligible for extensions or inching toward the end of their current deals. You've got Lamar Jackson, of course. But you've also got names like Tyler Linderbaum, Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers, Isaiah Likely, Odafe Oweh, Marlon Humphrey, and even some rising names on the defensive front. Eric DeCosta's got a whiteboard somewhere with a giant list of priorities, and we just saw one of the biggest boxes get checked. The most logical next man up? Lamar Jackson. Yes, he's already under contract. But that $70 million cap hit coming in the next season? That's not sustainable. The Ravens are going to need to restructure or extend Lamar's deal in a way that brings that number down and gives them more flexibility moving forward. Not just to add talent, but to retain the core they're building right now. And based on everything we've heard, from Harbaugh, from DeCosta, and even from Lamar himself, it sounds like both sides are open to making that happen sooner rather than later. After Lamar, all eyes shift to the offensive line, and in particular, Tyler Linderbaum. This kid has been a rock in the middle of that line. And let's not forget, the Ravens declined his 5th-year option. But that wasn't a knock on him. That was pure strategy. The projected number for that 5th year? Around $23 million. That's fully guaranteed. The highest-paid center in the league right now is at $18 million. So Baltimore's front office said, let's not let one season drive the market through the roof. Instead, they're betting that they can get a long-term deal done that keeps Linderbaum in town without blowing up the entire cap structure. And you know what? That's smart. Because as great as Tyler is, that 5th-year tag would have allowed him to negotiate from a leverage point way above the current market. Now, if they strike a deal sooner rather than later, it could save them millions over the life of the contract. And Linderbaum? He's a guy you want anchoring your offensive line for the next decade. Baltimore hasn't had this kind of long-term center stability since Matt Birk. They've gone through a carousel of short-term fixes. Ryan Jensen, Patrick McCurry, Matt Skura. Linderbaum changes that. He's a franchise center. Period. Now, while all this is going on, the Ravens also finalized their practice squad. And as always, there were a few surprises. Tyler Huntley is back in Baltimore, but not as the number 2 quarterback. He's on the practice squad. A lot of people thought Devin Leary might win that spot, but Huntley's experience and familiarity with the system clearly gave him the edge. We also saw names like Malik Ham, Chandler Martin, Anthony Miller, and Brent Urban make the squad. CJ Azoya is back, and so is Zaire Mitchell-Payton. Honestly, it's a strong group, especially when you consider that the Ravens had 3 players claimed off waivers, which was tied for the second most in the entire league. Jalen Armour-Davis, CJ Rios, and Bo Braid are all gone. And that stings, because each of those guys showed something during camp. But it also speaks to how deep this roster is. When you're losing multiple guys to waiver claims, it means other teams are watching what you're building. Some names that didn't make the cut raised a few eyebrows. 7th-round pick Garrett Dinger didn't make the roster or the practice squad. And Darian Dorr, who many fans thought was outplaying Ben Cleveland, also wasn't retained. Whether that was Baltimore's decision or those players seeking opportunities elsewhere, we don't know yet. But it shows just how competitive things were this offseason. 11 draft picks came in. Only a handful made the active roster. That's the reality of a stacked team. Not everyone's going to find a seat at the table. And that's exactly what Eric DeCosta was referring to when he talked about the musical chairs of roster building. You try to lock up as many key guys as you can. But in a salary cap league, you can't keep everyone. That's just the cold truth. And it's refreshing to hear a general manager be so upfront about it. DeCosta didn't sugarcoat it. He said flat out, there are going to be some good players on this team who will be playing elsewhere in the next couple of years. That's why there's so much pressure to capitalize now. That's why this year matters more than ever. When you have this much talent, when you've got Lamar, Kyle Hamilton, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, Roquan Smith, all on the same team, all in their prime, you don't let that window go to waste. Because as much as we talk about building for the future, you can't assume you'll always have another shot. Things change fast in the NFL. Injuries happen. Cap situations tighten. Players get poached. You've got a year, maybe 2, with this core group. You need to make it count. And that's exactly the energy coming out of John Harbaugh's press conferences. He's not just happy with the roster. He loves it. He looks out at practice and sees a team that's ready to contend. He's got talent, depth, leadership, and versatility at every level. And even the young guys, players like Kion Martin and Lejani Wester, are earning praise for how they're stepping up into key roles on special teams and beyond. Even on the injury front, there's optimism. Isaiah Likely, who many feared might miss extended time, wasn't placed on injured reserve. That suggests the Ravens expect him back within the first few weeks of the season. And DeCosta echoed that in his comments, saying Likely's attitude has been fantastic, and he's going to be a big part of the offense this year. That's huge, especially when you consider how important he is as a mismatch weapon in the passing game. So what does this all mean? It means the Ravens aren't just talking about being contenders. They're acting like it. They're locking up their foundational pieces. They're building a roster with real depth. And they're not afraid to make the tough calls, cutting draft picks, letting go of familiar names, if it means putting the best possible team on the field. That's the kind of organizational clarity you need if you're going to make a real run in January. And if this Kyle Hamilton extension is any sign of what's to come, Ravens fans better buckle up. Because something big might be around the corner. What makes this Ravens roster so unique heading into the season isn't just the talent on paper. It's the way the organization has balanced the present and the future. That's what's so hard to do in today's NFL. Most franchises either go all in for a short window and mortgage their future, or they play the long game and end up wasting the prime years of their best players. Baltimore is doing something different. They're threading the needle. And the Kyle Hamilton extension is just one piece of that puzzle. You look across this roster, and what you see is calculated investment. You see youth and experience blended together. You see risk taken in the right places and restraint where it matters. Take the wide receiver group, for example. Zay Flowers, entering just his second season, is already emerging as a true WR1 caliber player. He's explosive, confident, and polished. He knows how to separate. He's dangerous after the catch. and he brings the kind of quick-twitch route running that Baltimore hasn't had consistently in years. But the thing is, even as Zay becomes more of a centerpiece, the Ravens aren't rushing to throw $30 million a year at him. They're watching, they're planning, and they're giving him space to grow. If he proves over the next 2 seasons that he's a long-term star, then yeah, a big extension might be coming. But they're not jumping the gun. That's smart. Then you look at a guy like Mark Andrews, the heartbeat of the passing game for years. But you can feel the shift happening, can't you? His contract is nearing its end. Injuries have been creeping in. And with players like Likely and even Charlie Kolar showing promise, it's very possible that the Ravens are preparing for a world where Andrews isn't re-signed. That doesn't mean they don't value him. It means they're thinking ahead. They're not getting caught in the trap of paying everyone just because of past production. And when you're trying to maintain a championship-caliber roster, that kind of forward thinking is essential. And this is where Eric DeCosta really earns his reputation. Because he's not afraid of those hard conversations. He doesn't hang on a players too long. He's willing to walk away from a deal that doesn't make sense for the team long-term. That's why you've seen the Ravens allow guys like Orlando Brown Jr., Matthew Judon, and Yannick Ngakoue walk. Not because they didn't produce, but because the numbers didn't work, and because they believed in the next man up. Sometimes they've been wrong, but more often than not, they've been right. That's what gives you confidence going into a season like this. Now let's not forget about the defensive side, because that's where things get even more fascinating. Kyle Hamilton isn't just a piece, he's the centerpiece. But around him, you've got other major decisions looming. Roquan Smith is already locked in, which gives you elite play at linebacker. But what about Odafoa? He's entering a critical year. If he breaks out in 2025 the way Justin Matabike did in 2024, the Ravens are going to face another tough call. Do they shell out premium edge rusher money to a guy with one great year? Or do they let him walk and try to develop the next OA? That's the kind of gamble this front office lives with every season. Same goes for Marlon Humphrey and Jaire Alexander. Yes, they're 2 of the best corners in the game when healthy. But can you afford to keep both beyond this season? Probably not. So you have to start projecting. If Alexander balls out and Marlon struggles to stay on the field again, the path forward becomes clearer. But if both play at a Pro Bowl level, now it's a dilemma. That's when the cap starts tightening and you're forced to choose between 2 elite options. And that's exactly what DeCosta means when he says they can't keep everybody. He's not just talking about depth pieces. He's talking about core players, big names, fan favorites. That's what makes this all so high stakes. And yet, despite all that uncertainty, there's one thing that gives the Ravens a massive edge: Lamar Jackson. When you have that kind of player under center, everything else is manageable. You don't have to be perfect at every position. You don't need a top 5 receiver room or a stacked tight end rotation. Because Lamar tilts the field. He opens up the offense in ways that only a handful of quarterbacks in NFL history can. And when he's healthy, he makes everyone around him better. That's why locking him in was the most important move DeCosta has ever made. And it's why they'll likely revisit his deal again very soon. That $70 million cap hit coming next year is not just a problem. It's a wall. You can't build around that. You can't reinforce the trenches, keep your weapons, and maintain a top defense if your quarterback is eating up a third of the budget. So an extension or restructure is coming. It has to. And when it does, it'll open the door for other moves. Maybe you keep Linderbaum. Maybe you find a way to keep Zay Flowers and Humphrey. But none of it happens without Lamar's contract getting restructured. And speaking of trenches, let's give some love to the offensive and defensive lines. Because that's where championships are really won. On the O-line, Linderbaum is the anchor. Ronnie Stanley is still around, but this could very well be his final year in purple. Injuries and age are catching up to him, and the Ravens may be looking to get younger and more durable at tackle. On the right side, things feel a bit more solid, but depth is still a concern. This is a group that has the talent to dominate, but they'll need health and consistency. On the D-line, things are shaping up nicely. Matabike is coming off a career year and looking to build on it. Michael Pierce brings that veteran presence inside. And young players like Travis Jones and Broderick Washington are quietly becoming key rotational guys. There's a balance here: size, athleticism, versatility. And it all works because of the scheme. Mike McDonald's system allows these guys to attack in waves, keeping fresh bodies in and creating pressure without relying on one superstar edge rusher. And let's talk about the coaching staff, Because that's another reason this roster feels so dangerous. John Harbaugh, love him or hate him, has built a culture that players want to be part of. He's consistent. He's demanding. But he's also loyal. When he says this is one of the best rosters he's ever coached, you believe him. Because he's seen it all. The Super Bowl teams, the rebuilds, the near misses. He knows what elite looks like. Then you add in coordinators like McDonald on defense and Todd Monken on offense, and you've got something really special brewing. McDonald's creativity has been a game changer. He disguises coverages, moves guys around, and forces quarterbacks to think post-snap. That's where Kyle Hamilton thrives. That's where Roquan Smith thrives. That's where this entire defense gets its identity. Monken, on the other hand, brings balance. He's opened up the passing game, created more motion and flexibility, and allowed Lamar to operate with freedom. He doesn't try to put a square peg in a round hole. He tailors the system to his players, and the results speak for themselves. When this offense is healthy, it can go toe-to-toe with anyone in the league. All of this brings us to the season ahead. Because at the end of the day, contracts, extensions, roster battles, it all leads to Sundays. It all comes down to wins and losses. And make no mistake, the pressure is on. This is not a rebuilding year. This is not a figure-it-out-as-we-go situation. This is a Super Bowl window. A real one. Maybe the best one the Ravens have had since that 2012 team ran the table in January. You've got your quarterback. You've got your defense. You've got a top 10 receiver, a top 3 tight end when healthy, and a monster in the backfield in Derrick Henry. You've got youth, veterans, leadership, and fire. You've got one of the best front offices in the league and a head coach who knows how to win in December and January. Everything is in place. But windows don't last forever. That's what makes this year so critical. That's why every move the Ravens are making, from locking in Hamilton to setting the practice squad, has urgency behind it. Not panic, not desperation, just that sense of it's time. Time to stop talking about potential and start realizing it. Time to turn a great roster into a great team. Time to go from playoff contenders to legitimate Super Bowl threats. And if that means handing out a couple more extensions before week 1, then do it. Get Lamar's number down. Lock in Linderbaum. If you can make those moves without hurting the future, pull the trigger. Because everything we've seen so far, from the way this roster was built, to the decisions in training camp, to the message from Harbaugh, says the Ravens are going for it. And they should. Because when the smoke clears, when the season kicks off, and the grind of 17 games begins, this is the kind of team that can hang with anyone. This is the kind of team that can make a run. And this is the kind of season that, years from now, we might look back on and say, that's when it all came together. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support keeps us bringing you the latest news on the Baltimore Ravens. And hey, drop your take in the comments below. We want to hear from the flock. The NFL world has been set abuzz with one of the most anticipated moves of the season, as the Baltimore Ravens have officially confirmed the acquisition of T.J. Watt, a move that could potentially redefine the defensive landscape of the league. Rumors had been swirling for weeks, and insiders hinted at a deal that could shake up the AFC North in ways fans had only speculated about. Watt, widely regarded as one of the most formidable pass rushers of the modern era, brings a level of intensity and skill that could elevate the Ravens' defensive schemes to a completely new echelon. Analysts immediately began to speculate how his presence would impact the Ravens' front seven, potentially forcing opposing offenses to rethink their strategies entirely. Social media platforms erupted with reactions ranging from excitement to disbelief, as fans debated the immediate and long-term implications of such a high-profile signing. Whispers of the financial details of the contract, the potential trade-offs, and how this might affect other roster decisions began circulating through the rumor mill, adding to the sense of urgency and intrigue surrounding the franchise. Coaches, teammates, and league insiders have been tight-lipped, fueling even more speculation about Watt's role and how quickly he might adapt to Baltimore's defensive system, leaving fans eagerly anticipating the next move in what promises to be a defining chapter in Ravens history. Speculation surrounding T.J. Watt's impact on the Ravens' defensive line has intensified, with pundits weighing the possibilities of how his signature speed, technique, and football IQ might alter the team's dynamics. Analysts suggest that the mere presence of a player like Watt could create a ripple effect across the defensive unit, inspiring younger players to elevate their performance and allowing coordinators to implement more aggressive blitz packages without the usual hesitation. Discussions about matchups against divisional rivals have already begun, with the Steelers and Browns now facing the prospect of contending with a defensive force that can change the outcome of games on a single play. Rumors circulating in locker rooms and among team insiders hint that Watt's leadership extends beyond the field, potentially serving as a mentor for emerging talents and instilling a culture of relentless pursuit and strategic thinking. Off the field, speculation continues about the marketing and branding potential Watt brings to the Ravens, as his name alone could drive ticket sales, merchandise, and social media engagement. Fans have speculated endlessly about the timing of his debut, the adaptation period to the new playbook, and the chemistry with existing stars like Marlon Humphrey and Odafe Oweh, sparking heated debates on sports forums, podcasts, and fan groups, further magnifying the anticipation that now surrounds the Ravens' defense heading into the upcoming season. The buzz surrounding T.J. Watt's arrival in Baltimore has also led to a surge in conversations about the strategic implications for the Ravens' coaching staff, as rumors suggest that defensive coordinator Don Martindale may have been instrumental in orchestrating this acquisition. Insider chatter indicates that Martindale's schemes, known for their complexity and adaptability, could be perfectly complemented by Watt's versatility and ability to disrupt both passing and running games. Analysts have speculated that Watt's presence may allow for more creative use of linebackers and secondary players, giving the Ravens a level of unpredictability that opponents will find difficult to counter. Meanwhile, fans continue to dissect every interview, tweet, and cryptic statement made by team executives, searching for hints about Watt's role and potential alignment within the defensive rotation. The rumor mill also churns with theories about how this acquisition might influence future drafts and free agent signings, as the team could shift priorities now that a defensive cornerstone has been secured. Amid all this speculation, questions about Watt's health, conditioning, and ability to maintain peak performance have become central to the conversation, with insiders quietly observing his training regimen and rehabilitation progress. The combination of on-field potential and off-field intrigue has created an atmosphere reminiscent of a championship-caliber franchise maneuver, leaving fans, journalists, and analysts alike constantly on edge, wondering what dramatic moves might follow next in this high-stakes saga. Conversations around T.J. Watt's signing have also spilled over into the media landscape, where pundits and insiders have been crafting narratives around how his arrival could impact the Ravens' reputation as a defensive powerhouse. Rumors suggest that rival teams may now adjust their offensive strategies, anticipating Watt's ability to generate pressure from multiple alignments, a skill that has historically forced quarterbacks into rushed decisions and costly mistakes. Speculation about internal team dynamics has emerged as well, with whispers that Watt's work ethic and competitive nature may elevate the overall intensity of practice sessions, pushing teammates to new levels of performance. Social media has been ablaze with fan theories, mock scenarios, and playful exaggerations about Watt's potential to dominate divisional games, each new post fueling the narrative and maintaining constant public attention. Analysts also speculate about the tactical implications of pairing Watt with other standout defensive talents on the roster, suggesting that combined schemes could overwhelm even the most strategically prepared offenses. The rumor mill extends to potential contract structures and performance incentives, with speculation about bonuses, escalators, and possible future trades feeding the frenzy. Overall, the excitement, curiosity, and uncertainty swirling around Watt's integration into the Ravens system have created a captivating storyline, one that will likely dominate headlines, discussions, and preseason predictions for weeks, if not months, as fans and experts attempt to forecast the true impact of this landmark acquisition. Even as T.J. Watt's arrival has been confirmed, speculation continues regarding the broader implications for the Ravens' long-term strategic vision, with insiders hinting at the potential for this move to redefine the team's identity for years to come. Rumors suggest that the front office may now prioritize additional defensive reinforcements, seeking to complement Watt's unique skill set and maximize the team's ability to pressure quarterbacks and disrupt offensive timing. Fans have engaged in heated debates about how Watt's presence will affect the balance between pass rush, coverage schemes, and overall defensive philosophy, with some envisioning a dominant unit capable of contending for a championship immediately. Analysts have also speculated about what's potential influence on the morale and culture within the locker room, suggesting that his leadership, intensity, and experience in high-stakes games could serve as a catalyst for a new era of competitiveness and accountability. Off-field discussions continue to focus on merchandise sales, sponsorships, and media attention, with speculation that Watt's star power may extend far beyond the gridiron. The combination of anticipation, rumor, and excitement has created a heightened sense of drama and intrigue around the Ravens' roster moves, leaving fans, journalists, and insiders eagerly watching each development, tweet, and press briefing for hints about how this high-profile acquisition will ultimately unfold, solidifying Watt's place in the ongoing narrative of Baltimore's football future. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay in the loop with exclusive news on our Baltimore Ravens, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what the flock thinks. Drop your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next one.